Hey guys, it's Miss Escamilla. Today is Wednesday, and so the homework that is due tomorrow will be questions 7, 8, and 9. And then I won't be here tomorrow, so therefore I'm going to go ahead and include all the help you need for questions 10, 11, 12, and 13 as well, just so that you have all the help you need for the next couple of nights, because I won't be here tomorrow to make the video. I'm going to be out tomorrow. So on question number 7, which is due tomorrow on Thursday, you are going to be looking for which one of these answer choices has two fractions that are not equivalent to each other. So I know it gives you a picture model, and the picture model can help you, but I also noticed that there's a lot of fractions down here that have been made into equivalent fractions. So for me personally, I would use a different strategy than looking at the picture model to help you determine whether or not all these fractions are equivalent. So one of the things we've talked about is using multiplication, division, or the butterfly method to determine equivalency. So one of the things that you can do if you were to get two fractions, so if I were to give you 4/8 and I wanted you to compare it to, let's say I wanted you to compare it to 8/12. Okay, then one of the strategies you could use to compare these would be to use the butterfly method, which would be to multiply 4 times 12, which would give you 48. And then 8 times 8, you would multiply these two, and that gives you 64. Therefore, because 64 is greater than 48, 8/12 is going to be larger than 4/8. Okay? And so these would not be equivalent to each other. Not be equivalent to each other. However, if I were to give you something such as 4/8 and 8/16, if I were to use my butterfly method here, 16 times 4 gives you 64. 8 times 8 gives you 64. Therefore, 64 and 64 are the same number, which would mean that both these fractions would be equivalent to each other. Okay? Another method you could use would be to multiply. So if I were to give you 4/8, if I multiplied each the numerator and denominator by 2, that would give us 8/16. So that would mean that 4/8 is equivalent to 8/16. Okay, so so what you're trying to do is find out which one of these, when you either multiply or use your butterfly method, which set of fractions are not correct. Okay, in other words, not equivalent, because I notice they all have an equal sign. So which one of these really truly is not equivalent, or not equivalent? Okay, on the next 3 problems, numbers 8, 9, and 10, we are using this dot plot in order to answer these questions. Okay, so one of the things I want y'all to keep in mind when you're answering these questions, guys, is that I noticed for 0, 1/8, and 2/8, there's no dots above them. So there's no information or data here. So we probably don't need to be doing anything with these numbers right here, or 8/8, because there are no dots there. So because there's no data for those fractions, I would probably ignore these, and we're not going to do anything with those fractions at all. We're only going to focus on the dots above the fractions in which we actually do have data, which would be from 3/8 all the way to 7/8. So remember that when you're solving these problems, because I know on the first problem it's asking you what is the difference between the largest diameter and the coin with the smallest diameter. Well, the largest diameter on the dot plot is 8/8, but there's no information for 8/8. So therefore, I would disregard that piece, that length of a coin. Okay, and I also see that the smallest diameter is 1/8, but there's no data for it, so I would ignore that information and focus on just the lengths in which we actually have data for. Okay, so on that problem, you also need to know what the word difference means. We've talked about that many times in class. What operation do you use when you are trying to find the difference? Okay, so I'm going to need to see an equation on this one. On number 9, we were trying to find how many coins measured less than 3/4 inches diameter. So when I look up here, I notice that there is no 3/4 inches, which means you're going to need to find which one of these is equivalent to 3/4. Because one of these fractions, in fact, is equal or equivalent to 3/4. Okay? So first you're going to have to figure out what that fraction would be. And we can determine, make equivalent fractions again by using pictures, dividing, or multiplying. Earlier I showed you how you could use multiplication. When we took 4/8 and multiplied each the numerator and denominator by 2, we got 8/16, and then we determined that these two are equivalent to each other. So I would focus on finding that equivalent fraction to 3/4 first, and then finding it, putting your finger on it, and then determine how many of the coins were less than that. Less. Okay? And then on number 10, if you were to combine all the lengths of the coins that were 7/8 long, so here's 7/8, here's all the coins, there's 3 of them. If you were to combine the length of each one of those coins, how long would it be? I can tell you right now, I see some mixed numbers here. So when you are combining all these, so that one would be 7/8 long, that one would be 7/8 long, that one would be 7/8 long. When you combine all of them, if you get an improper fraction, then you need to make it a mixed number. And so in case you have forgotten how to do that, if I were to give you, let's say, 20/7, the way you would make that a mixed number is by dividing. You would take 20, the numerator, you would divide it by 7, the denominator. I know that 7 can go into 14 2 times without going over 20. I know that 7 times 2 gives me 14. When I find the difference or subtract 14 from 20, I get 6. So my mixed number is going to be 2. The 6, which is my remainder, is going to be my numerator. The 7, which is my divisor, is going to be my denominator. So 20/7 renamed as a mixed number would be 2 6/7. So make sure that you're renaming that improper fraction on number 10. Okay, number 11 is, I can tell I see decimals. So we need to make sure that we are lining up those decimal points correctly if you're adding or subtracting. I'm not going to tell you what operation to use. You're going to have to figure that out. I am going to go ahead and tell you that make sure you're determining whether or not this is a multi-step problem. Okay, because I noticed that she buys some clothes and we want to find the cost of all her clothes. But I noticed that she bought 1 hat and she bought 2 skirts. So 1 hat and 2 skirts. What would that total cost be? And remember, when you're adding decimals, we need to line up. If you add or subtract decimals, whether you're adding or subtracting, make sure that you line up your hundredths place with the hundredths place, tenths place with the tenths place. Your decimal points are lined up, your ones place and your tens place. All your numbers are lined up. And then when you begin to add or subtract, I would bring that decimal point down first so you don't forget to put it in there, and then begin doing the work. Okay? All right, on number 12, it is a dot plot. And it's asking you to find how many loaves of bread weighed more than 3/4 pound, but less than 1 3/4 pound. Make sure, I know in class we talked about boxing that information. So more than 3/4. So you would need to find 3/4 and then count all the ones that are more than that. But less than 1 3/4. So here's 1 3/4. So you would need to count all the ones less than that. Okay? not exactly 1 3/4, and not exactly 3/4, but more than 3/4 and less than 1 3/4. In class, I showed you how to circle all those pieces of information and then count up how many pieces of data you circled to determine your answer. Make sure you write your answer and circle it so that I know what your answer is over here on the side. On this one, there's nothing that there's no bubbles to record. You just write your answer and solve your problem down here and circle your answer. Okay, on number 13, the last problem, it's a frequency table. And then it gives you all the information for the pizza and for the chicken. And your job is to determine what information you would plug in for hamburger based on the clues down here. So it says the number of students who chose a hamburger is half the number of students who chose pizza. How many students chose a hamburger or chicken as their favorite school lunch? So this is going to be a multi-step. You're going to first have to determine how many people got the hamburger first and fill in that data. And you cannot solve the problem until you have that data filled in. So it tells you the number of students who chose a hamburger is half the number of students who chose pizza. So find pizza. What is half of that? That is how many students that got the hamburger. Then the next step would be to now solve the problem using all the data that you have. How many students chose a hamburger or chicken? So here's the chicken as their school lunch. We talked about that weird, funny word "or" in class. That's really, really new to 4th grade. It's confusing because it makes you think you have to make a choice between these two. But really, that word "or" means to perform a certain operation. Is it subtraction? Is it addition? Is it multiplication? Is it division? What is it? We talked about it in class. So see if you can remember what that word "or" means we need to do. Okay, if you have any questions while you're doing the work, email me. I have my phone on me. I check my email all the time. And so even though I won't be at school tomorrow, you're always welcome to email me, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can if you have any questions on your homework. All right, good luck. Love you guys. I'll see y'all on Friday. Bye.